we offer undergraduate major and minor in commercial real estate, in addition to concentration in the we love hosting events like this, where we do professionals on the campus, give you guys an opportunity to get to know us, and for me, for us to get to know you where you're going. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Thank you guys for coming. I'm happy to start out with tip to death. You all know it is a great thing, and hopefully we can continue to do this some more. We tried to put together a panel that has a little bit of diversity, given what everybody's gone through. I think that everybody knows that. We've been thrown out for 15 years. So, right? And with that, Natalie can give a quick introduction to our panelists. Like I said, thanks for coming out. Thanks for going up for hosting us with us. And thanks to all of our sponsors, Capital Shores, Community Bank, Sylvan, Dow, and we appreciate all the help.
Great, thank you, Eric. So what I thought we would do tonight is we'll get an introduction of our speakers, and then we'll go through some questions, and then we can leave time at the end for questions, or if you think of a question at the moment and you want to raise your hand, we'll address you then. So with that, we have Steve Spader from Equus Capital Partners. We have Tom O'Brien from Elcor and Tom Bentley from Bentley Homes. And why don't we start with you, Steve? You can tell us a little bit about your company and maybe what you're working on.
Okay, well, Equus Capital Partners is formerly BPG, and before that was Berwyn Property Group. And the recent transition to Equus Properties was, everybody asks what was that all about. It was really just the final chapter of buying Berwyn out of the company. So Equus Capital is now owned by 7 individuals who are the partners of the company. I'm one of the partners, and we're privately owned, operated. Our main business is in institutional investment for funds. We form private equity funds and invest on behalf of institutions, pension funds, endowment funds. We also, the lion's share of the investments go into operating and stabilized assets, and a smaller portion of our investment pool goes towards development and development-oriented assets. And my responsibility with the company is the operating assets, acquisitions and operations of the existing portfolio, as well as the identification and execution of development opportunities.
Thank you. Tom O'Brien.
Okay. My name is Tom O'Brien. I'm Chief Operating Officer for a company called Elcor. I've been with the company for 28 years, which includes a stint with our predecessor company, which was called the Linpro Company. Kind of like Steve, sort of same group of people, just, evolution of the structure of the company. Prior to that, I was a CPA with Arthur Anderson, that old firm that used to exist in the Philadelphia CPA and the international accounting business. And I'm a graduate of Villanova. I went to school across the parking lot there at the business school. What Elcor does, and I think it's done for most of its history, is we own, manage, and operate and develop institutional real estate, primarily multifamily housing and specialized commercial or mixed-use projects. We've been in business now for 35 years, and over that time we've developed $7.5 million of real estate, including 21,000 residential units and about 20 million square feet of commercial space. Strangely enough, we used to be very active in the Philadelphia area, and then as time went on, we kind of found opportunities to the north, to the south, to the west, not so much to the east. And as a result, we sort of have disappeared in the Philadelphia area. We have a few sort of anchors here with some small things that are mostly invisible, but we have decided and committed resources, people, and otherwise to really rediscover our hometown. We've been based here for our entire duration, and we hope to be able to be a little more visible and contribute to the Philadelphia economy as well.
Thank Thank you. Tom Bentley.
Hey, just dazing off. My name's Tom Bentley, and I am, I guess, the CEO of Bentley Homes. Bentley Homes really kind of started about 50 years ago when I built a two-story tree house in my backyard. And the lady next door, who I didn't realize I was going to be looking at her pool over the fence, but she called the building inspector, and he came out and told me I had to take out a building permit. And I did. I filled one out, and we had some zoning problems with that, but we worked it out. And so, I've had a love of building and construction my whole life. What a lot of people know us for is our high-end homes that we build in the mainline area, but really we build homes from $300,000 to $3 million. We've built a lot of townhouses, a lot of more market rate housing, mid-range housing. Last year we did, I think we finished up one townhouse job. It was 300, and we had probably 3 or 4 homes that we sold for $2.5 million. So we're fine to be known for luxury housing. It helps us when we're selling townhouses. And the way Bentley Homes operates, we've been in business for 40 years. The way we operate is we always like to have a model. We think our model homes, like our retail outlet, and I'm sure some of you have been in our model homes, you probably don't like your wives to go, or if you're a man, you don't like your wives to go into our homes because, you get a little heat on that probably. But anyway, so, our models are kind of our retail outlet, so we love to have like a job like Whitegate or Harrison or Laurier where we have, a really spiffed out model home that shows, what we think the market is right now, well decorated, and, nobody needs $1 million home. The people who are buying our homes, or $2 million home, the people who are buying our homes typically already live in really nice homes. But, we try to paint a picture of, a lifestyle and an affluence and a romance that people would, want to have for their hard-earned money. And while we do, really kind of high-end models and with developments, right now we're not really doing too much of that because of the recession. We're doing a lot of spot lots. We're building without models in a lot of our communities. We will be coming back to having models, when things heat up a little bit. One of the things we do that's kind of unique that you may not realize is we really build, even a $2 million home, we build it like it's a production home. We have purchase orders for everything we do. We price out almost anything you would pick in one of our homes. We've already pre-priced the options, and we have it in a computer system. So we kind of turned the custom home business on its side and figured out how could we do just go down one side of the street and build $1 million homes and come up the other. And it's kind of like building townhouses, but we do it for, multi-million dollar homes. One little funny story about, we've been through, in 40 years, probably, 5 recessions. This one's definitely the worst. But when it got really bad in 2008, I was like, it can't be happening. I mean, we are the great Bentley Homes. This is unbelievable. And so I sent my guys out to do like the market research of like our primary market area, which would be, Radnor, Tredyffrin, Easttown, Willistown, and Newtown. And so they went out and they did all this work, and they were out of the office gathering up all this data. And they came back and they said, well, this is like over a 6-month period. We tracked the housing, and over $1 million, and in like 5 townships. And the guys came in and said, well, do you want the good news or the bad news? And I was like, well, what could possibly be good? I mean, everybody's on their ass and nothing's happening. And I said, what is the good news? He says, we have finally achieved 50% market share. And I was like, really? That's just amazing. And what's the bad news? He says, well, in those 6 townships over 6 months, there were only 10 homes that were sold over $1 million. We happen to have 5 of them. I said, well, that's great. So, that's my close. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, that helps segue us into the my first question, and that has to do with the recession. And I wanted to have each of you tell us how you survived the recession, and as the follow-up to that, what are some of the lessons you learned from the recession? So, Steve, why don't you start out with that, since Tom just finished.
What was the first part of that question?
How did you survive the recession?
Oh, okay. It was a tough market, right? And I guess, like Tom said, it can't be this bad. It's just not. It's going to get better soon, and it just continued to go on. And I guess it really started in you said 08, but we really started to feel like things were going south in early 07. We stopped buying, so we didn't continue to make new investments. We really felt like it was tough. Okay, so 07 we really shut down the acquisition pipeline. We didn't make matters worse by buying more at the peak, because others continued to buy into 08, and those assets surely got crushed. Our portfolio is made up roughly 50% of commercial type assets and roughly 50% apartments. And apartments remained healthy through that cycle. So as bad, as challenging as office and industrial and the stuff I'm responsible for was, which was, the apartment guys were doing pretty well. So that diversification was important and valuable to us and our portfolio as a whole. It lasted longer than I think anyone anticipated. It feels like it's beginning to recover now. It just means you work harder with less satisfaction or gratification. But a lot of people got squeezed out of the business. But our diversified portfolio and strong work ethic and strong business ethic, performing for your tenants, even when it hurt. It allowed us to be successful and to come out the other side of this thing. And we recently raised a new fund, $300 million, and we're back making new acquisitions and probably in growth mode again. So. It was a challenging period, and I think like anybody else, maybe like Tom didn't exactly say, you start believing your own bullshit.
Did I say
How did this happen? I think that everybody, when times go real well for a long time, you start to think that it has, that it's all about you, and it's not. There's market cycles out there, and you have to. Stay humble and look for the signs, and never forget the work ethic that got you where you are, and keep it.
Okay. Tom O'Brien, why don't you, I think you have something you want to
I should say that when Steve was trying to sell apartments in 2007, or his partners were trying to sell apartments, we were under contract with one of them. We decided not to buy it in 2008, but I think it's still on the market actually right now.
Our apartments are selling? I don't know which one you're talking about. But
our company in 2000, actually 1999, we formed a joint venture with Lehman Brothers, basically to help us expand from a privately capitalized company to one that could deliver on kind of multiple transactions. We kept finding we were getting the larger transactions and didn't have the internal capital to be able to prosecute so many of those at the same time. So we went to Wall Street and looked for groups that would, instead of funds, we went kind of the private route of getting balance sheet equity from a Wall Street firm who grew up as traders. The Lehman Brothers was a trading company, so for 150 years, as soon as they closed a transaction, they wanted to know what could they sell it for. So for us, that was a big change because we used to develop and own, we used to call it investment real estate, where you kind of life cycle from the land through approvals, build it, operate it, and sell it. And suddenly, our partner was an investment bank. But we got used to that, and we made it work well. I think we probably did 50 transactions with them over the next 10 years. But then we got to September of 2008. And the way our company was structured, we had a platform where they owned an interest in all of our properties, typically between 60 and 80%. And they also owned a similar interest in our operating company. And we were exclusive to that operating platform. We couldn't just kind of do a deal with some other investor or some other partner. They always had the chance to do the transaction, and unless they approved of it, we actually couldn't do it without them, so they kind of had a veto. And we were doing, what we thought was fairly good business at the time, had completed a number of transactions, and, we kind of woke up on September 15th and came to the office and said, oh, our partner's bankrupt. It was kind of we knew that was a possibility. We certainly saw symptoms over the previous year. I think, like Steve said, there were signs in the market that things, certainly Bear Stearns and other investment banks had gone through a cycle. But the way we looked at our company was, okay, we had about $110 million kind of internal balance sheet that Lehman and we owned, and that was our sort of sponsor company. Our partner was bankrupt, our company wasn't bankrupt, our joint venture wasn't bankrupt, and I guess the first thing we learned was all the people that we used to deal with didn't work at Lehman Brothers anymore. Literally that day, they were all the guys with the boxes, walking out. And I think it took us about 3 months until we actually found a person. Because they literally, had their lawyers, working on various things, but all of the origination and asset management people we dealt with were all gone. But we did end up finding in, I think it was January when we actually met with them, someone who was in the asset management group at Lehman Brothers and eventually became kind of and today is the head of their, what they call their global real estate group. He's still there, amazingly. And we sat down and said, hey, you're bankrupt, we're not. How about we buy you out and we'll be friends and we'll know about our business. And he goes, that's not going to happen. And we said, well, why not? He said, we're not selling anything. We're already bankrupt. We don't need to sell anything. And in the market conditions, it made no sense to sell anything. But what he did say to us was, we're going to need each other. We're in a whole different world than we used to be. What else are you going to do? You guys are in an industry that's kind of dead right now. You're not going to be building anything. There's transactions are not happening. So, we're going to need each other. So what we ended up finding is, when we took our 150 employees and kind of our uncertainty, forward, 5 years later, we replaced Lehman Brothers as our partner. In May of 2012, we recapitalized the former Lehman position as well as 5,000 existing apartment units that they owned. And we purchased those with our new partner and our new old partner, Kousters, because we had previously partnered with them on certain projects that they were a direct partner in. So as we look at our situation 5 years later, our company's balance sheet now is $1.5 billion. Our partner is the largest educator-only pension fund in the world. They're $172 billion in assets, $22 billion of which are in real estate. Our company is 2.5 times the size that it was in terms of employees. We went from 150 employees to 375 employees. And our pipeline is redeveloped up to, right now, it's in excess of $1 billion. And, that just is, some of that is, you could say we were lucky and, things just kind of work out. As Steve said, you keep doing what you do and you fall back on your basic traits and strengths of your company. But in many ways, I think it kind of comes back to two things for us. And we've been asked this question a lot. Why were you able to do this? You're this little company based in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. Why did all these people trust and invest with you? And it was really two things that we draw back on. We're very good at building and maintaining relationships. It's just kind of who we are. I mean, we think about it and we work at it, but it's just ingrained in the culture of our people. And I guess it's one of the things that, as we look at people joining our company, it's always an important part of the culture is, what do people think of you? The people you used to work with, or the people that knew you, when you went to college, or whatever it is. We really want to know kind of the culture of the people, and is it going to fit within our company? And then the other thing we really find is, it's about sort of problem solving. We joke that real estate isn't, brain surgery. It's not rocket science. We're pretty smart people, or we'd like to think we are, but it's really kind of about just solving problems. And obviously a lot of the people in this room are used to that. You kind of figure out what the issue is, and you kind of pull it apart, and you work at it, and use, all kinds of common sense and technical skills, and you figure out problems. So in many ways, what we always try to guard against is, we know we wouldn't be a very good kind of cookie cutter, box cutter, because we'd want to reinvent the box. So in many ways, what we really focus on is things that are complicated. They take a long time. They demand, a lot of capital, or a lot of people resources, or something that makes it a little bit harder. Yeah, sure. Good. Okay, so this was the final equation that I thought, since I took calculus across the street, what we had to figure out was how to make 1 + 1 + 1 be more than 3. And then there's one last thing. Since it's Thanksgiving time, I have this picture in my office, and it's really what we try to guard against is, not every real estate transaction performs as expected. And as a Green Street analyst said, I think it was last week in a story I was reading, it says, it's been a suboptimal development with 20/20 hindsight. I guess that's a really roundabout way of saying it didn't work out the way you thought it might. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tom Bentley, how did you survive from the session?
Well, the first thing, I agree with Steve that in the middle of 07 is really pretty much when it hit. We had some carryover with our houses that, because they take a long time to build, that we kind of got into the recession later than most people, because it takes a year to do a really big house. The first thing we did is I decided to keep my key people. We had 86 employees. In 06, we were doing like $85 million a year, and we went down to probably like 8 people or something. And there were some key people that I just, at my age, I was not willing to start over again and do it all myself. So I kept the key people and paid them their salary, and they're very loyal. And that was a big decision for me, though, because it was a lot of overhead. We owed one bank and a subsidiary bank about $60 million, and it was a kind of a total wrap. It's called a borrowing-based loan, and one day they just decided they weren't going to be in the real estate business anymore. And all my key guys that I had relationships with for like 25 years, just all left in a group, not one guy. They all went to another bank as a team. And so here we are. We're up against this gigantic bank who got sold to Wells Fargo.
And worse from there.
And we had these people, and we kind of got handed around to different account specialists in Chicago and Maryland and nobody knew what was going on. We had to tell every person what was going on. But the one thing we did is I realized that there was some real bad stuff coming down the road, especially for residential real estate. So I kind of went on the offensive, and I went out and I looked at what this bank had done with a lot of the other builders in the area. There's some pretty big builders that had relationships with these banks. And I wanted to get intel as to, what I was up against, what I could expect them to do with me, or to me. And so I went out and figured out who each one of their lawyers was for all the major builders in the area, and I hired each lawyer to work for me for 2 hours. And during that 2-hour period, we sat around a room and we talked about what had happened without them spilling too much in each situation with their own building company. So I'm talking about maybe 5 or 6 building companies, most of which got wiped out. And so from that intel that we learned about, what was happening and what the bank's predisposed position was on residential real estate, we basically formed a battle plan and then executed on it. And basically, it was a pretty hard confrontational, position we put ourselves in. And we borrowed every penny we could. We took out every loan we could. And when kind of the time came, we sat down and made a deal with them. And what we did is when banks. This was the primary thing. If we were going to survive, we had to make this bank happy because they really could come in and just clean us out. So we basically made a deal with them that was good. I think banks like plans. We made a plan that we could perform at, and we spent the entire 4.5 years, executing this plan. We stopped building for a whole year while we negotiated this deal. But I knew that if I didn't have a deal and left it up to them, based on my intel from these other lawyers, that we were going to be out of business. So I mean, we really took it pretty seriously. And we came up with a plan that basically had a series of hurdles over 4 years, and we had to perform a certain amount every quarter to meet their payback expectations on the $60 million. And so what happens is when you're in residential real estate and the market drops and you've got to pay the bank back like, $5 million a quarter or whatever, if a customer walks into the house or into your model home, that guy's not leaving without a house. So that's what we did. I mean, we would just make deals, and it was just like, sometimes we make good deals and sometimes we make bad deals, but we made deals, and we made those quarterly payments through the entire 4-year period, and we're down to I think we've got $3 million left to go. So from $60 million to $3 million. That was a major thing we did. We focused on it. The other thing we realized is that being somewhat well known in the suburban area, a lot of people thought we were out of business. I mean, because we stopped building for a year. So we decided to, kind of shoot from the hip again. And we made a deal and decided to do the Philadelphia Magazine Design Home, which is, I don't know if you ever see it, but Philadelphia Magazine does a home every year with a builder, and it's a very splashy model with a lot of nice decorations, and we went all out, and we had 4,800 people go through the model. We had 150,000 people that get subscriptions, see my picture and my company's picture, and so pretty much got rid of the doubts about us being out of business. We cut all our overhead dramatically. We got rid of our water cooler. I mean, we did all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, we were like bragging with each other about what we could come up with to save money. I complained once about some ants or something and said, well, we got rid of the exterminator. We don't use them anymore. So we got everything. And then, we kind of went on the offensive. We decided really to kind of get out of this. We still had some cash, which is... Okay, I'm sorry. So, we decided to really build our way out of it. We started building spec homes. And, I think that really helped us a lot because we had houses that when people sold their house, they could buy a house. Nobody wanted to do the old Bentley model, which was, build a custom home, then sell their home later. Nobody wanted to have 2 homes with mortgages. We designed some newer, smaller homes. We made them feel bigger by getting rid of the walls. We re-engineered everything, and we basically got our costs down. The other thing we had to be willing to do, we had to be willing to lose money. And we did that very well. All of our older properties, we were willing to lose money just to get through it and get into the new stuff. Done.
No, thank you. Very good, very good. So many questions here. Is there a project, I mentioned this to Tom on a phone call, and I said, is there a project that your competitor is doing recently that you admire? And what was your answer? Nobody's doing anything. I'm the only one. But
I did find some older projects that I liked.
Well, listen, to each of you, if you could just give us a quick, is there one project that you're working on now that you're excited about, that you like, or even if there's something that somebody else is working on? Why don't you start, Steve?
Well, everybody knows my passion for the Ellis Preserve. And one of these days, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, what's right about it?
You know, I just love. I love the business. Any project we just built some. You said that you don't do boxes. I do boxes. I do dumb boxes. I just did a 450,000 foot build suit for McKesson on I-81 corridor. I love it. It's a dumb box, but you know, you're building something. You're creating space for somebody. They're running a business out of it. You know, you meet the people and you learn about their business, and you help them solve their space problems, whether they're moving product or logistics, whatever it is. It's just great. It's a fun business. You meet all kinds of different situations, and whether it's office or industrial or apartments, which we're developing now. It's a whole. Each one has its own interesting nuances, and it's fun to learn about it. So I love the business projects that. Anything in the city. We didn't get involved in the apartment boom in the city, which I think is getting a little long in the tooth because there's so much proposed. Everybody's after that game, and we hadn't gotten into it to this point. And I don't see us getting into it now just because it just seems like it's overheated. But it would have been really fun to develop, redevelop some grand old building from the Warrior or shortly thereafter. We tried getting the building at 1616 Walnut and thought we had it. And what a beautiful building. It would have been a really fun project. So, all those things are fun to me. So if I had to come up with one that I'm like, God, where did we get that? 1616. Love that building.
That's great location too. How about Tom O'Brien?
The one that comes to mind is the Brandywine FMC headquarters. We've known Brandywine. In fact, we formed Brandywine back in the late 80s. And we give Jerry Sweeney and a lot of our alum there a lot of credit, because I think to this day people would say, who's building a 47-story building on Walnut Street over on the east side there, west side? But, they seem to have figured it out. Obviously, Penn's behind it, and it's going to be a marquee building that I think is good for the city. It's good to cross the river and see more of the growth on that side.
Thank you. Tom Bentley.
Yeah, projects that other builders did that I like. Chip Vaughn did a job at Trammell Crow called Whitehall, right by Bryn Mawr Hospital, that was started in the middle of the recession. He had a nice partner, of course, but it sold like 2 per month at $750,000. I thought that was neat. I'm a member at Applebrook, so I love the townhouses that Poldig built there, and Hank Belber developed that. And as far as my own, anything that's got those 4 little letters in front of it, SOLD, I love. That's the best project that's sold.
That's good. Do any of you all use social media in your business? And if you do, or if you don't, tell me why. And if you do, tell me how you're using it and if it's important at all to your business. Anybody? No?
Yeah, we do.
How do you use it?
We have our foot in the door because everybody's doing it, supposedly. I don't think it helps me sell $1 million homes. I think it helps my SEO. I know that when we do a lot of stuff and push on the social medias, our SEO,
Tell people what SEO is. It's
search engine optimization. Our place on Google just goes up a little bit, when I was on LinkedIn, I used to be able to do a blast to all of my LinkedIn people with one little, and they changed it, and now I don't know how to do that. But, when I did it, I said, now I have like 1,000 or some LinkedIn people. When I did it, my position in Google would go up the next day. Just from doing that, just because I would say something about Bentley Homes on it. So I think we're doing it because we want to keep pace with it. I don't know if it does a lot of good, though.
Yeah, and I take it you guys...
Our commercial side, we don't really have any useful applications that I'm aware of. The Madison apartment platform uses it pretty extensively. There's a ton of social media where they're promoting sites and promoting... they wind up with a high percentage of of course, they're renters, in the high 70 or 80% range is, first identify the site online. They know that. And a fairly high percent, probably in the 30% range, sign a lease online, maybe without even having seen the community in person. So it's a huge, kind of evolving application in the apartment, in their apartment business. I don't know all the nuances of it because somebody's really, I developed them, but somebody else is really dealing with that end.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, we see it a lot in the apartments, and especially in new developments, and areas where, there's, a younger population in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn. We literally have a whole kind of preliminary marketing process, and many people do sign up. I think the idea is to collect, like 1,000 names, who want to come and see apartments once, they're available. And I think reputational management is the other thing that you see on existing properties. You're always worried about the guy who said, hey, you didn't fix my leak for 2 hours, and obviously you're not going to totally avoid that, but you want to manage and make sure you don't have 1,000 of those negative comments. At least there's some balance, or you actually try to reach out to the person and say, hey, what can we do to make it right, and what really is the issue?
Right.
I think a couple of years ago, I moderated the same panel, and one of the biggest issues for developers was getting financing for projects. And in 2013, what are some of the challenges you are seeing when it comes to doing projects, out of the ground projects? I don't know, who wants to take that? Tom Bentley.
Okay. Well, there couldn't have been much of a worse time to try and get new financing than the middle of the recession, when you're digging out underneath a huge bank, and you're going and calling on new banks when you're digging out with the old ones. So we survived. We didn't do any new financing really during the heart of the recession. Coming out of the recession, we got a couple of banks to actually let us in the door and talk to them a little bit. And, we've got 3 banks now we're working with, smaller banks. And I call it the first date. The first date is very important with a bank. So I got a nice little package here. The house is sold. Do you want to finance it? I mean, we've had people say no. I mean, we had banks that said no, we don't want to. But now they're saying yes. So, so that first date is so important. And then after that, we can,
And you start showing respect.
Yeah. We go for a little bit more.
Tom O'Brien.
I think Tom's description of the first date, we always call it to crawl before you walk before you run, and you kind of do have to take it a step at a time. I'd say within the last 12 months, we've financed a number of recent loans with banks and other groups. Just closed a construction loan last week with the successor to that bank that Tom was talking about. And what we found is that a year ago, there were a small number of people, ones that you had dealt with for a number of years, that were interested in doing financing. Now there's an army. I mean, literally small, medium, large, foreign, it doesn't matter. They're all coming out of the woodwork because they have to get the money out. Even they admit the money's basically free. I mean, what you're borrowing at, from a historical standpoint, is
Well, they got floors now too. I mean,
I haven't seen.
We're seeing them having floors.
Yeah, I haven't seen floors.
I have.
They're still giving you the floor treatment.
Yeah.
So it's really changed.
Poor little developer.
Your first dates must not be as good as you thought.
Maybe he's borrowing 110%. Those are the good old days when you could borrow that. But where you
First
see
dates are different these years.
you see it more in the the leverage limitations. And in our structure, we're not able to borrow. Our structure doesn't allow us to borrow at high levels. So anywhere that you're sort of in their mind low or medium leverage, they're all over it, and it's gotten very easy. And not to say the process is easy, but there's plenty of availability.
Steve?
I agree. I mean, if the loan to values are sensible, and we're typically a 65% type or less, and Developers conference, so I'll spend just 1 minute outside of that, which is, when we're buying income for, existing income, the lenders are real anxious, real aggressive. They're, the money, you can get multiple quotes and really good terms, and, where a year or a couple of years ago was with covenants and guarantees and, all kinds of bells and whistles that make you not want to take the money. The banks have relaxed many of those requirements, including guarantee requirements on the on development sites. We're not doing spec office. That would surely be a whole different story. But apartments are in favor, pre-leased industrials in favor. Where you're doing build-to-suits, again, the money's there. Lenders are not. They're not requiring guarantees, or the guarantees may be partial guarantees, and there's releases of those guarantees at various thresholds. So, they're really adapting to developers' concerns now and trying to be accommodative, because there's a lot of competition to get the money out. And, they're doing what they need to do to accomplish their objective, which is to make loans. So it's definitely coming back to a world of reasonableness.
We probably wish it was harder.
Say that again?
I think in some ways it would be better if it were harder.
Oh, interesting.
It is still hard for residential guys. Our debt to equity ratio used to be 2.5 to 1, which is good in my industry. 3 to 1 is a good debt to equity ratio. We had $20 million in the company. We could borrow $60 million, $50 million. Now those debt to equity ratios gone from 3 to 1, 2.5 to 1 to 0.9 to 1. So if I got $15 million in a company, I can borrow $15 million, or no, 14. So it's a completely different play now, which really hurts growth and acquisition.
Audience questions. Anyone? Yes.
A question for Tom. How have buyer preferences changed from pre-recession to post-recession in terms of building size, amenities?
God, I got a whole paragraph here on that. The biggest changes in size and price, in luxury, you're talking luxury, I assume.
Yes.
We were building houses that were 6,000, 8,000 square feet in 04, 05, 06. And we were selling them for $1.7 to $2.5 million. Now those sizes, we pretty much live right around 5,200, but I would say 4,500 to 6,000 square feet. Every now and then we get a big boy, somebody comes in, they want to pull the stops out and build a $2.5 million home, but it's pretty much in that range. And the preference is, it's, I think I wrote it down here someplace, I don't know, I'll probably mess it up, but the pre-recession, people were talking about how big their house was and, where they lived and stuff. During the recession, nobody talked about buying a new home. It was not hip to have a new home. It was hip to be cool, be poor and be frugal. And now what they talk about is the great deal they got on their home. I hammered that guy. I got that $2.5 million house for $1.7 million. I think they're more conscious with energy. They're more conscious with size. We don't see that. We're not doing the big cathedral ceilings anymore. Some people, yes, but the houses are kind of right-sized. We build them with less walls. They feel bigger. They're actually smaller. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other audience questions? Yeah.
Before the recession, at least in my business, and I'm a residential developer, there was a very strong anti-development, anti-growth sentiment, particularly in the suburbs. I'm curious whether any of you guys are taking things through approvals now in sort of tougher barrier entry markets and finding any change in that sentiment.
Not in residential?
I would say yes.
How
I would say yes. Well, first of all, there's not as much stuff in most townships in their pipeline or on their agendas. So you can actually get their attention. They can focus on the requirement. So at a minimum, you're not competing with 10 other jobs for the attention of the township engineer, township solicitor to look at. The projects that you're proposing, if they're build-to-suits, they're new jobs, there's ratables coming online, townships like that, they're receptive to that. The apartment jobs that we've undertaken, in most instances, are requiring a rezoning, because there's really not much in the Philadelphia region that's already zoned apartments, because for so long it was an undesired use within most municipalities. So the projects that we've undertaken for apartments we're achieving rezonings, where townships have no obligation to even give it some consideration. When we go in and you can really tell the story of what an apartment and an apartment community does and what it's about, in our case, in the suburban environment, that and you can demonstrate the quality of what you're going to build, the renter that you're going to attract, that they are actually higher earnings, and that the demographics of it are people who have good jobs and pay taxes and are responsible citizens and vote. They're not. It's not. It really is in many instances equal to or better than the demographic that's otherwise within the community. And townships, first of all, are willing to listen to the story, because years ago you would have got thrown out. In fact, the first project we're building in New Britain, I did get thrown out 10 years ago. But I came back 10 years later and proposed essentially the same project. Had a little bit better story, first date went better, and we got approved. So I would say that, yeah, townships are more receptive to hearing your story, and they're probably more inclined to accept your story for the benefits that they will get out of the project, which are, in many instances, the ratables, the real estate taxes, the development fees. I mean, development fees between traffic impact fees, park and rec fees, sewer, EDU fees. These townships can make 15 grand a unit off you in the development process. They're interested in that. They're interested in getting their hands on those dollars. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a more receptive climate.
Yeah, no, we're seeing the same thing. There are communities in northern New Jersey that we're taking sites through or now are under construction on one, and one is actually town-sponsored. It's a redevelopment district, the town and the school district own the site, and they basically want it to go forward. In fact, they're going so far as to sort of try to demand that you deliver the rateable store. So that, yeah, exactly.
They're going to store.
They don't want to just sell you the land, they want to dictate to you the schedule. But it's not without exception. There are still communities that just don't like apartments or don't like development.
That's the township. You still have to get through all the regulatory agencies, which is not any better, and it's probably worse, because they just don't get me started.
I'll hear that later. Tom Bentley, you shook your head no.
Yeah, well, I think on the main line, it's they don't want any development. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, in the more developed townships like Radnor, we're putting up 10 houses in an area that's zoned for 15, and it's like, it's a major process, So, I mean, it depends on the township and how well off they are, and, a lot of other things.
Brad's out here. I mean, you have they're planning to densify everything. You wouldn't have seen that
5 years ago, let alone a year ago. So to see your point, I mean, I think it's kind of township, in our view, dependent. So some townships are getting it, but there aren't many deals in the pipeline, so they're much more receptive to the conversation. Others are still living 5-10 years ago, and if it's anything with a non-over 55 community, they're still very much worried about schools, and that's very state specific and very township specific. But to Steve's point, I think they're much more open than they were 2-3 years ago.
Interesting. Go ahead, Brad.
Tom, you mentioned energy efficiency, so I'm curious on the panel's view. With Green Build, United States Green Building Council's convention coming to Philadelphia next week, about 30,000 people paying attention to energy efficiency and sustainability. Each of the three of you, do you find your customers, either the buyers or the tenants, interested in energy efficiency and sustainability more, or it's kind of not even on their radar screen for the most part? So just curious from all three of you.
We occasionally have somebody that comes in that really wants to do it up. We just had a guy that built like a $2.5 million house. He put in the water source heat pumps and the foam insulation and the whole deal. I mean, he's never going to get a payback on that. I mean, he'll be 100 years old and looking at his utility bill. I mean, he spent a fortune. But I think I think we are building houses that are more energy efficient. I mean, I don't think we may have one community we still use 2x4 walls, but in most of the communities we really have beefed it up. And the people come in, they want to know if you have what your insulation standards are and stuff, and they're generally happy. I mean, it's really, my market right now is so price driven. I mean, it really is. I mean, if somebody comes in and they say, I want a green home, I said, okay, what do you want? Well, what do you got? I said, well, we can foam for $10,000 extra, or we can do this for $10,000. Oh, no, I don't want to pay for it. I want that house for $499,000, just like you advertised. I said, okay, we'll build you the house. So, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people screaming for it, to answer your question.
Our office tenants?
My direct, what I can relate to directly is 1000 Continental. We built 1000 Continental, started in 08, that worked out great. Actually, it worked out pretty well because it's 99% leased now. The roster of tenants are, interestingly enough, is almost all insurance companies. We built that green. It was probably the first green spec building in the suburbs. Maybe still is the only one, I guess. Might be. We incorporated a whole lot of, we got LEED certification, and we incorporated a lot of energy management systems. And the building operates today, the electric expense is $1.58 a foot, which $1.50 is what we budgeted at Century Corporate Center in 1988. So the building operates for $1.58 a foot. And tenants, and that resonates with the tenants. The green aspect was important to the customers that went there. It attracted the highest end customers. I think that there's probably a small portion of the entire population is going to care and is going to demand it or expect it for their employees, and I think that's growing. I think that what it winds up doing is attracting better tenants with better credit, who it means something, who it is important to. I think the energy side of it, then when the proof is in the pudding, and you can get electric for $1.58 instead of $3.50, that resonates. And now we put the building on the market for sale, and we've gotten our bids, and the bids are very, very aggressive, and the institutional buyers of that building, the whole green and the lineup of tenants who went there and why, and the operating expense of the building resonated with the prospective buyers. So maybe I didn't get maybe I got $30, $50, or $31 on most of the tenant leases going in, when maybe I should have gotten $1 a foot more because my electric expense was $1 a foot less. I didn't get it from the tenant, but I think I got it from the market, and I got it in value by attracting the premium tenants who are sticky. We're going to probably renew there, over and over again. And I'm getting it from the institutional market who recognize the value of that higher class of building.
Did you want to add anything?
No, I was going to say, we're seeing it on the commercial side more, that it is recognized, the commercial users, the GSA type users, and then you have, in terms of regulatory, there's a lot of requirements just to build a building now in a lot of places that you have to meet some requirements.
We did build the Britain project, apartment project, to the standards as well, and you have that young hip crowd. The demographics, our average age of our average renter there is 47 years old, which is, interestingly enough, is made up of a whole bunch of people from 70 to 96, and a bunch of people from 23 to 32. And it converges on 47, which is pretty neat. And the group on the low end of that's dragging that number down, it wasn't for them. They care about that. They want to know that you're socially conscious.
One last quick question, and just a quick answer. How are the Eagles going to do the season? Win-loss.
They're going to break our heart again. They build you up and break your heart. It happens every season 3 times. So we're getting ready for the next one. Here it comes.
Anybody else have anything to add?
No idea.
8 names.
8 names. Wonderful. Thank you to our panelists. I appreciate it. Thank you to the audience.